of the South African Police, Bheki Cele, the head of the South African Police, General Stole, and the senior management that is here, and every citizen and everybody out there, good afternoon. When President Cyril Ramaphosa declared a state of disaster in March, the objective was to flatten the curve in relation to the spread of the coronavirus. Subsequently, measures have been put in place to practicalize this objective. A number of regulations were promulgated, including the current risk-adjusted strategy, all in the best interest of the citizens of the country. We were urged to all work together and fight this pandemic, and we have, to a greater extent, been successful in achieving this. Now, 57 days later, and exactly 3 weeks into lockdown level 4, the country is anxiously awaiting the dawn of level 3 as government continues to respond to both the pandemic and the needs of the public. I have, together with the Deputy Minister of Police, Bheki Cele, and the National Commissioner, Stole, been visiting provinces to assess enforcement by the security forces as well as adherence to the lockdown regulations. Have visited some provinces more than once after receiving complaints and observing high levels of non-compliance. Coincidentally, these provinces, where I visited more than once, are currently those with the highest COVID-19 infection rates. At the point towards the end of April, when we were still on level 5, we had about 107,000 cases opened with 118,000 people charged for contravening of the lockdown regulation. Want me to break the law? Okay, but taking the mask off is breaking the law. Okay, if you say so. At one point towards the end of April, when we were still at level 5, we had about 107,000 cases opened with 118 people charged for contravention of lockdown regulations. In just over a month, this number has more than doubled and is almost at 230 for contraventions that include liquor relations offences, cigarette-related offences, illegal gathering, which have gone down since the level 4, failure to confine to places of residence, which remains a serious challenge, cross-border and interprovincial business-related offences, transport-related offences, and fraudulent or no permits. Provinces with the highest number of arrests for contravention of the lockdown regulations almost mirror the provincial infection rates, with the Western Cape in the lead, followed by Eastern Cape, KwaZulu-Natal, and Gauteng. Accordingly, the arrested persons were either issued with fines or released with warning, while some are out on bail, and those cases relating to more serious offences are before the respective courts in the country. We know that criminals are opportunistic, so organized crime syndicates have taken advantage of the lockdown, especially on the ban of the alcohol and cigarettes, and have expanded their illegal trade into the illegal market of illicit and counterfeit alcohol and cigarette sales. We have also observed an increase in smuggling of contraband liquor and tobacco between South African land borders with Botswana, Eswatini, Lesotho, Mozambique, and Zimbabwe, as well as the sale of these products in the black market. Our lockdown partners, the South African National Defence Force, have disrupted some of these illegal operations, mainly along South African borders with Mozambique, Zimbabwe, and Eswatini. And confiscated contraband include alcohol and cigarettes worth about 1.07 million in March and 1.6 million rands in April. In relation to the serious and violent crime, we have announced in April that there was a dramatic decline, especially the conduct crime category, which includes domestic violence, as well as in trio crimes, which include house and business robberies, as well as hijacking. Again, this time around, as we have compared crime since the lockdown to crime over the same period in 2019, while the figures remain low, comparatively speaking, we have noted slight increase in some crime categories. The reasons behind the increase or decrease in crime is yet to be determined and confirmed by our crime analyst. However, we do believe that the slight increase is due to the relaxation of the lockdown restrictions, which has seen increased movement of people and traffic on the road as more companies have gone back to the business again. In the conduct crime, if we'll compare same periods last year or outside the lockdown and inside the lockdown. For instance, 26 March to 21st March 2019 and 27 March to 19 2020. We had murder, that is 2,970, but under lockdown we had 1,072. The difference was 1,898. As we go forward, I will just mention the figures that we have gone down with. On rape, we are 4,431 down. On attempted murder, we are 1,439 down. On assault GBH, we are 17,796 down. On robbery with aggravating circumstances, we are 9,427 down. When you go to trio crimes, the difference would be on the same dates. On car hijack, we are 1,868 down. On robbery non-residential, we are 1,798 down. On robbery at residential, we are 1,482 down. Cash in transit robberies, when compared incidents of the cash in transit robberies during lockdown to the same period on 2019, the number has dropped remarkably from 26 to 4 incidents. Although the lockdown figures for serious and violent crime are still lower in comparison to 2019, we have noted an increase in hijacks, especially if we compare the first 2 weeks of level 5 to the first 2 weeks of level 4. Most hijacks incidents were recorded in Gauteng, followed by Western Cape, KwaZulu-Natal, and Eastern Cape. Let me take this opportunity to commend police in Gauteng for the arrest on the 19th May 2020 of 4 suspects who have since been linked to 18 other hijacks, some of which were committed during the lockdown period, mostly in Boksburg and other parts of Gauteng. The intelligence-led operation between the SAPS and the Specialized Law Enforcement Unit from Gauteng Provincial Traffic led police to Soweto, where police arrested the suspect and recovered suspected stolen goods. 2 vehicles and a gun with ammunition were seized for further investigation. A lot of other crime-fighting successes have been achieved during lockdown. For instance, we have had 2 major drug busts just in the past week alone. Police in Eastern Cape on Wednesday confiscated drugs, mandrax and dagga, worth an estimated value of 4 million during 4 million rand in a routine inspection at the health checkpoint outside Middelburg in the Eastern Cape. 2 suspects, both foreign nationals, were arrested. On Monday, the 18th May, members of the Hawks intercepted a truck which was en route to Cape Town and found in a container cocaine worth over 30.4 million, and the 37-year-old suspect was arrested. Let me also take this opportunity to condemn the violence in relation to the multiple murder yesterday afternoon in the Guamakuta policing precincts in KwaZulu-Natal, which is on south of Durban. 7 young men aged between 21 and 36 were killed by unknown suspects, and the circumstances are now under investigation. Police must leave no stone unturned in ensuring that the suspects are found and brought to book. Allow me to begin with welcoming the long-term sentences handed down on 2 convicted rapists yesterday. A 66-year-old Cape Town man, Herman Hanger, was handed 15 life sentences plus 30 years for rape and abduction. We also welcome the life sentence on a former police captain after being found guilty of raping his 10-year-old granddaughter 18 years ago. He was found guilty in 2000 in the in Sterkfontein court and was given a life sentence. Coming to GBV, I have noted recent media reports claiming that gender-based violence is on the increase. During the week, one report even claimed that GBV cases had gone up by 500% during the lockdown. While not undermining the gravity of the scourge of GBV in the country, it is important to clarify that this increase is actually in relation to the number of distress calls made to the GBV command center and not necessarily reported cases. Actually, when we refer to the gender-based violence, these would cover all crimes against women and children as well as LGBTQI plus community. For instance, if a woman walking to the shop is mugged and robbed at the gunpoint of her personal belongings by a random suspect, that incident is recorded as crime against women and therefore falls under GBV. Therefore, for purpose of measuring the impact of the lockdown on homes and families, we use cases of domestic violence. With domestic violence, we refer to the incidents such as sexual assault, rape, pointing of firearm, murder, attempted murder, assault, and assault, GBH, kidnapping, and such instances. The victim and suspect usually have a relationship. As I have mentioned before, some of the suspects in such cases are uncles, exes, either could be ex-boy or ex-girl, wives and girlfriends, husbands, fathers, partners, siblings, but people well known to the victim. If we compare the period 27 March to 25 May 2019 with the lockdown period from 27 March to 2020, there is a sharp decrease from 21,000 in 2019 to 6,000 cases of domestic violence during the lockdown, giving us percentage decrease of 68.4%. The numbers are in reference to reported cases. Therefore, there is a possibility that there could be a victim at home who have not or cannot report to the police for different reasons. To assist in this regard so that victims do not feel vulnerable, neglected, and unprotected, we urge victims to report to the police because police can really only come in after the crime has already taken place in the private space of homes. We urge the neighbors who are often aware of have reasons to suspect violent domestic disruption to alert the police. Friends, relatives, or someone within the shared residence may also alert the police about the abuse on behalf of the victim. As far as possible, victims of domestic violence are reminded that they may approach the courts for the protection order and hand those orders to the nearest police stations. The current situation with COVID-19 lockdown makes it particularly necessary for people to contact the police telephonically as movement is limited. As an alternative, the SAPS emergency number 10111 can be called in an emergency, including when a crime is in progress. This is for agent intervention by the police to disrupt further commission of the crime. In areas where there are no 10111 call centers, calls are diverted to the police station closest to the caller. Callers that want to remain anonymous may contact SAPS Crime Stop number 08600 10111 or send a tip-off via my SAPS app, which can be downloaded on Android and iPhone. Other contact details could GBV Command Center or 0800 428 428. Childline toll free 0800 0555. Lifeline 0800 150 150. Human Trafficking Hotline 0800 222 777. Members of the public must also report poor service by the police or lack thereof first to the station management, whose contact numbers must to be visible placed in the CSC. That is the front desk of the South African Police. Complaints can also be lodged with the National Service Complaints Call Center on 080 033 3177. The auto-attendant voice prompts will assist and direct the complainant on how to lodge such a service complaint. An email can also be sent to complaints nodal point at saps.gov.za. Moving away from crime, I want to take this opportunity to pay respect to members of the SAPS, the South African National Defence Force, and all other security forces who are on front line supporting government efforts to deal with the COVID-19. So far, we have 611 members of the South African Police that have tested positive on COVID-19, and 101 of them have recovered, with the Western Cape leading with 441, Eastern Cape follows with 47 positive cases, and the rest of the country sharing the rest. Let me commend the SAPS COVID-19 national and provincial steering committees for ensuring that protocols are in place and that they are being followed. We have been proactive by sending the intensive screening and testing has seen hundreds of members go in isolation and over 3,000 of them quarantined, who most of them have gone back to duties because they have been found to be okay. Our condolences go out to the families and colleagues of 6 of our members who have succumbed to the virus. 2 of these members passed away yesterday in Western Cape, bringing to total 4 of the related deaths in the province. So 4 of them are in Western Cape and 2 in the rest of the country, 1 in KZN, 1 in Eastern Cape. I know that our communities have been nervous about police members testing positive and stations being shut down. The truth is, as soon as SAPS member or PSA employee from any police station or any SAPS building tests positive, the Department of Health is brought on board. Occupants of the specific building are screened and tested. The building or facility must be vacated immediately for decontamination and can only be occupied after a period of 12 to 48 hours after the process. Isolation and quarantine of the members and those who have been in immediate contact with them is based on the outcome of the screening and testing. There are about 121 stations countrywide and 40 units where members have tested positive and the premises contaminated, with the Western Cape being the hardest hit province so far. It is reported that at least 19 stations have had to be decontaminated twice or more. There is a list of those stations here, which is quite long, 19 of them. The occupants of the buildings are screened prior to the reoccupation of the premises to prevent the contamination of the premise. While the members' and employees' health is a key priority, police as essential service providers are under strict instruction to ensure that service delivery is not disrupted at any point. Once a building is temporarily shut for decontamination, alternative accommodation is arranged for the CSC so that our communities still have access to the service points. SEPs have sent out alerts and notices to immediately inform the public of alternative accommodation at station where members have tested positive. The Ministry of Police and the management of the South African Police reiterate their support of all members of law enforcement agencies in the SEPs, the National and Provincial Traffic Police, and the Metro Police, and all other law enforcement agencies on the ground. In relation to the complaints against the police for heavy-handedness, we have noted complaints relating to an incident where a journalist was allegedly assaulted by the police in Vicksburg and has since fled to Lesotho. We confirm that this matter is now with the IPIT and under investigation on my instruction. Further, the National Commissioner has instructed the Provincial Commissioner of Free State to investigate the matter at the station level, of which the report will be brought back to the National Commissioner and brought to the Minister soon. Firearm amnesty ending on the 31st. This question has been asked time and again. With the firearm amnesty period about to expire at the end of this month, we have been receiving a number of inquiries on whether or not this will be extended. We have written to the Parliament to request for an extension after noticing the sharp decline in the voluntary handover during the lockdown. Since December, firearms and ammunition were handed in their thousands, and then in April, only 385 were handed in. We believe that the sharp decline since April may be because of the lockdown, which has limited the movement of the people, as the handing over of firearms is not necessarily categorized as an essential service. We appreciate the over 16,000 surrendered firearms thus far, including 795 estate firearms. These firearms would be those that would have been inherited from the parents or husband, wives, when somebody dies, and then they're handed over, as well as over 140,000 ammunition handed over in. It is important to always remember that the firearm amnesty is one of our many interventions to curb the proliferation of illegal firearms of our street, as well as those unwanted firearms. This will help us bring down serious and violent crimes that continue to terrorize our communities. In conclusion, as I round up this overview on the crime during the lockdown, let me take this opportunity to extend a word of appreciation to our members from security forces who are hard at work during this COVID-19 lockdown. Let me also wish those who have tested positive for the coronavirus and subsequently fallen ill a speedy recovery. Continue to observe hygiene protocols put in place, wearing your PPEs at all times. To the country at large, remember the lockdown in government effort is to protect you against the coronavirus. These are trying times, and we therefore need to exercise patience and look at the prize, which is a healthy nation that managed to effectively respond to the pandemic as well as united force against the virus. Let us work hard in support of government intervention so that we all live to see life beyond the coronavirus pandemic. Remember, the virus has no feet. We as human beings are its mode of transport. So, to make sure the virus stays put, let us stay home, exercise maximum precautions, and save South Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. Before we take questions, can I just quickly ask the Minister to touch on one of the deliverables that the South African Police Service had to see to in relation to the Collins Causa judgment. Over to you again, Minister.
You must be fit by now. Yes, remember we were given the time frames by the judge, and we are trying to stick to those time frames in respect of complying as the South African Police and the South African National Defence Force. We were given 2 days by the judge, which has been complied by the head of defense and the head of the South African Police. And then we were given 5 days that we're supposed to comply today. The Minister of Defense and the Minister of Police, whom they're supposed to sign the document of Code of Conduct of the Joint Officers during the state of... That document is here, it's fine. Unfortunately, the time hasn't lapsed that we sign it, but it will be definitely signed before the day ends, and the day ends at 12. But the document is prepared and ready, and we have the document ready to be signed. So there are other dates that we are prepared to comply with going forward. Almost everything that was said by the judge will be complying with some 1 or 2 areas that as a South African Police, we thought looking at them, they'll have to be appealed. We don't think that we are very much keen on compliance on that one. We believe that we have a legally a legal alternative of dealing with those matters. Unfortunately, because it's already in the legal system, we have appealed on it, so we believe that we can't talk much about. But more than any other, more than 90%, almost 95% of what the judge has said, we are prepared to comply with that, including this document that by the end of the day today, it will have been signed by both ministers. Thank you very much.
Thank you once again, Minister. We will now move over to the questions. Is there someone that is assisting us with the questions for the Minister?
We've got 2 questions on the telephone line. We'll take both 2. It's Alex from News 24, and immediately after Alex, we'll have Mercedes Besant from SABC. Let's start with Alex from News 24. Hello, Alex. Alex, you can go for it.
You noted that in your statement confined to place of residence, a lot of people have not been staying at their place of residence. Just from an anecdotal view, it does appear that a lot more people are out now and a lot more people are not adhering. But it also appears that there are less roadblocks and policing in suburban areas and townships. So how are police exactly going to enforce these rules going forward when it does appear that a lot of people are now beginning to do whatever they want to do?
Thank you so much, Alex. Let's go to Mercedes Besant from SABC. Go for it.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Minister. I'm actually very happy that you answered the first question on the firearm amnesty, which was one of my first questions. But I've got two more questions. I often see on TV when police arrest people, they put them in vans and, you have many people in one van. There's no social distancing. Is there no social distancing in the police vans? And also the sanitizing of vans before placing people in the vans, even if you arrest a dangerous criminal, because, this is the coronavirus and the ultimate intention is to curb the spread. And we know surfaces also keep the virus. And the last question is, how many police officers are supposed to be in a vehicle? I often see two in front, wherever, and you can see they are very depressed, two in front and two at the back. And I also often see police in Parliament, for example, in one queue. They basically have no choice. Where is social distancing and also the compliance from the part of the police services? I'm sure everyone has to comply.
Ladies, that's all the questions that we have from this side.
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any questions, maybe from WhatsApp?
Thanks, Matapelo. We do have questions on WhatsApp, and the first question is from Alex Mitchley from News 24, who asked two questions, and the first question is, are there a discussion in the National Command Council to continue the ban on alcohol and tobacco products until level 1 of the lockdown? And the second question is, could the minister please comment on the Fabricius judgment, particularly the parts where the judge had harsh words for comments made by the minister and on the behavior of police officers when enforcing the lockdown regulations? The following question is from Ferial Hafaji from Daily Maverick. The question is, will government be appealing the North Gauteng High Court judgment on Collins Khoza? And what is the minister's response to the IPD report, which has found that 11 people died in police action between late March and early May, while 300 other reports related to police misconduct have been made to IPD? And we have Grime Hosken from Sunday Times. The question is, how many people have been arrested since the start of the national lockdown? And can we please have a breakdown of these arrests and where they were effected? And we have Mariam Isa from Finwick. Said, given the huge increase in illicit trade of alcohol and cigarettes, which is depriving SARS of tax revenues, does it make sense to continue to prohibit sales of these products? And how much of the big fall in violent crimes during the lockdown can be attributed to the ban of alcohol sales? Couldn't they be the results of people not moving around during the lockdown itself? We have Claudia from Business Day, and the question is, can the minister give us an indication of by how much the illicit trade in terms of alcohol and cigarettes has increased since the lockdown? We have Jan Delange from Rapport, said despite the sharp decline in the levels of reported serious crime by more than 60%, the number of serious complaints against police officers increased by 32% since the lockdown started. And what is the minister's explanation of this contradiction? And we have Claudia again from Business Day, who said that, can the minister explain what exact sections of the Khoza judgment will be appealed? Thanks.
Thank you very much, Minister. I think we can hand over to come and respond to the questions.
We have one additional question, if you don't mind, and this is Thabo from Rainbow FM. Tabo, go for it. Ask your question.
Minister, good afternoon. It's Tabo Makutwani here. And my question, the first one is moving into level 3, because we're expecting to, as we heard, to move to level 3 soon. What are we going to see? What measures of particularly around policing? What measures have you put in place? Because obviously this poses a higher risk at that level. So moving into level 3, I'd like to know what measures are in place. And the second one, I think, is just regarding criminal records for people who will be going for employment and who will be applying for employment, particularly for people who have been charged for contravening lockdown restrictions.
Thank you, Minister. I think we'll stop there now. If there's any other questions, we'll take them after the Minister has responded to this first set. Over to you, Minister.
I thought I'll be protected in the questions. It's quite avalanche. There are not too few at all. The few roadblocks, as people begin to move, indeed, the level 4, while is close to level 5, there were more workplaces that were opened. There were more trade places, retailers that were opened. There were malls that were opened, which means that there are more people that will be moving in between their houses and their places. So that, the second question from News 24, the fewer roadblocks. Indeed, if more people are allowed to move and there are less restriction and less reasons to stop people moving forward, so roadblocks would not be as before when there was supposed to be no movement at all. So there are things that are still prohibited that are there, like the figures of funeral and the movement between the provinces. Those movements will be only allowed on funerals and essential movement. So there are few people that would be in the move have not been allowed to move in between these centers. So roadblocks then will be fewer than when more people were not supposed to move. But also we have increased the patrols rather than just the roadblocks. Patrols, and you remember that up to this point there is a curfew that people are supposed to be in the houses after 8. We don't know what happens to the next level, but up to this far, that is happening. And you remember that there will be roadblocks, especially when it comes to the public transport, the taxis, that there should be 70% in there. There should be the face mask. Those activities, they get less after 8 because you are not expected to move around after 8. As you know that there are food outlets that have been opened for delivery, no collection and all that, they close at 5 or 6. So there are no more reasons of increasing roadblocks. Maybe that's why you will less roadblocks, except there are some areas really where the roadblocks are still necessary because of the higher movement of the people without reasons for them to move. Western Cape is part of that. Mercedes, the social distancing of the police, you have seen vans that are packed of people. I've been around quite many roadblocks. We have been there, and we have made that point very clear. most of the roadblocks now, you find these big cars called omelego rather than the small vans. And we try to move them quicker before they are full. I don't say every time we sustain and we maintain that social distance. We try very hard that we move those cars quicker to the police stations and wherever people are supposed to go for their bail, police bail, and all that fine and warning. So it's thing that we have been working on it from the very word go. But those vans you see, as they go to offload the people that are there, they will be sanitized, they will be sprayed before they go back to the area of operation. We try very much best to say we keep that sanitization with those cars. So you have seen the police sitting at vans, one driver. We have been dealing with a meter between the occupants of every and any car. We have tried to increase the police sitting at the back of the van so that we can honor that one meter. But there are cars that are enough to give you almost a meter space between the occupants in front. So we will have that. But we have, as you say, Mercedes, surely you haven't seen 3 of those members sitting there. It's one of the efforts to try to work on that meter, but extra than that, we'll keep them behind. So we try all the time that police themselves comply with this regulation, including sanitization. All our vans have sanitizers. We sanitize ourselves, and we make sure that all our members have PPEs, like the face mask, and we have sometimes even extra. We have pinafores as the South African police, aprons, to make sure that the contact with the people is protected, even that contact. We have sometimes the boots covers to cover our boots depending where we go. We have to really work hard on the PPEs of the South African police. Alcohol question. I'm a member of the NCC. I'm not the NCC. So my contributions will be made in the committee, and then the announcement would have been what we have discussed and the decision agreed. And definitely it has been discussed time and again, and I'm sure the announcement will be made. But Cele does not make announcements on those matters. President or the minister responsible for the regulation will. Just wait, and ours as the South African Police is to enforce what would have been decided upon between cigarettes and alcohol. But making that announcement, I might suspect what direction that the decision will take, but it's not for me to make those announcements. 11 people died in the police custody. One has been trying to explain this thing of the iPad for some time now. iPad, their law and their standards of operation are a little bit different than everybody in South Africa. For instance, if you find me having a chicken in my hand, the chicken that is stolen, it is alleged that I've stolen the chicken, even if it is in my hand, until the court pronounces that you are guilty of stealing the chicken. So every time, hence the police will never say Cele is guilty. They say is alleged to have done this. It's a court area to pronounce. But with the IPIT law, there is no such. The law says the police are charged of the police brutality, and they are charged with the death in the police custody or the death out of the actions of the police activities. And then those will be investigated. Unfortunately, the figures that will be given by IPID are not figures that have been already investigated, confirmed or disconfirmed. So are the figures as it's seen. And most of those figures, they are reversed. Unfortunately, nobody picks them up when those figures have been reversed. The Western Cape one is the case in point where somebody died, and the report was simple. The man died out of the police actions, and the doctor said the man died on the double heart attack. Nobody comes back to correct that. The information and the data that stayed is that he died in the hands of the police. So we will love to say the final information given out there is an information that has been investigated by the IPID and found to be so. That's a problem with the IPID going forward. The question I did answer on the statement to say there are 230,000 people who have been arrested. They have been arrested for different things, alcohol, trading alcohol not to be where they're supposed to be, breaking the law, some big one in the transport offenses, and alcohol, illicit, cigarette and all that. So there are 230, but as I say, there are different offenses that they have committed. Well, there is an allegation of huge increase of illicit cigarettes and alcohol. Well, I'm not sure about the qualification of the word huge. Nobody has really given us the measurements of how huge the thing is. Yes, we confirm that there are illicit. That's why there are big number of people that have been arrested on that. And there are thousands, could be even millions of liters that have been confiscated in many ways. I remember there are 2 places in Durban where we had to bring trucks to pick that, in Ladysmith and Phoenix in Durban, but many other areas, there is a lot of alcohol that has been confiscated. That includes cigarette, illicit trade of cigarette, lot of it that has been confiscated, and those reports are given almost every day. There is just one thing I want to say about cigarette, by the way, Commissioner. Cigarettes illicit trading did not start during COVID-19 activities. It has been the problem of South Africans all the time, both the industry and the police. I remember even 2010, when I was doing the other job as the police, we did have several meetings with the industry trying to fight the illicit trade of cigarette. So it should not come as if the illicit of cigarette has come out because there is COVID-19. Industry themselves, they know, government, they know, law enforcement. We have an ongoing work together dealing with those matters. It's like the music industry, that there is piracy and all that, is the same thing with the illicit of cigarette. So it should not be looked as if this illicit trade of cigarette came with the COVID-19. Is one thing that is always there. That also, by the way, includes the alcohol. I visited the border gates, your Swazi, the border gates, like leading Swazi and Mozambique. There are huge stores there where we keep these illicit things. It was the first time I saw the whiskey in a plastic container. I saw it there. We see those things all the time. I never thought that whiskey would be in a plastic. And that was long before COVID-19. So this illicit thing, I think that we are fighting. So to say huge, I would really like to get the measurement. How do we find the word that qualifies it as huge? But we agree, we work on it, we work with the industry and the police. are leaving no stone unturned, and I can assure you we have a lot of successes on this one. But this one should not be linked with the COVID-19. Mostly COVID-19 activities around these two things, alcohol and cigarettes, are not very much on the crime. Yes, crime reduction has benefited. It's a question of health. It's a question of health. For instance, if you go to the research done by Professor Nicol, who's based in UCT and is a chair of trauma centers and theaters in Western Cape hospitals, said 2 weeks before the lockdown, they've seen 150 people over the weekend occupying your theaters, occupying your ICUs. And exactly 2 weeks after the lockdown, there were only 40 people instead of 150, which means that gives more space and more facilities in the hospital to the people that need it more than the people that they drink alcohol, they shoot one another, they stab one another and all that. And those people, as they come out of theater and they go to ICU, they don't stay 1 day in the wards. They stay up to 6 months, which means ordinary people that are supposed to be accessing these facilities are blocked by the people who go there in their own choice. Because if you get drunk and you shoot somebody, that is your own choice rather than the person who's sick, rather than the person who suffers of COVID-19. So these are health arguments rather than the crime. Yes, crime has benefited, but look, these arguments are around that. The argument is that if you lift the ban on alcohol, this statement must not be seen as a direction that we're going to take. They say if you lift the ban on alcohol, immediately there will be 5,000 occupied beds in these sensitive areas of health. And at the same time, Minister Mkhize is announcing the figures that are going up. In the 2 days ago, it was the first time that 1,000 was announced. So you open here, 5,000 people they go because they've shot and stabbed one another, and the COVID here. So it's a health argument rather than the crime and people that are enjoying the alcohol. Alcohol must be enjoyed. Responsible, we don't have a problem with those, but we have a problem when it begins to interfere with the rights of other people. So, well, I think the next question was the same, the illicit of the trade. Increase in police complaint. Indeed, we have received the increase about the police brutality and or the overhand of the police doing their job. Fortunately, the South African police, they forever know what they're supposed to do. Before they leave the college is a part of their training of reading the code of conduct. But National Commissioner and the ministry, whenever we meet police together, we read the code of conduct, what they're supposed and not supposed to do. But you also know that there are structures within the South African police where this brutality can be reported. But also we have IPID as an oversight on the South African police. So those things are taken care of when they happen, and the police are reprimanded according to what they have committed. Hence, we are making the call on the South African communities to report these things to IPID, to the police management, and any other structures like your human rights to report these unsavory activities of the South African police. the question of what the judge have said about the Minister of Police, the statements. The Minister of Police has not said any illegal statements. This Minister of Police is a product of the struggles here for the human rights. By the way, some of us, we had to suffer for these human rights. We have to go to exile, we have to go to prison fighting for these human rights. So we're not going to come back and undermine these human rights here. It is said when the police are given instruction to do their work, remember, you are serving under the constitutional dispensation. We are serving under the culture of human rights. Police are reminded all the time. But there are laws here. There is constitution and there are laws. For instance, the law, main law, which is the constitution, if you go to 205, it says the job of the police is to enforce the law. And then the Criminal Procedure Act 49, it explained the proportionality that you're supposed to use when you arrest the citizens. Easier, you arrest the citizen, you don't use any force. But it is allowed that you use force. By the way, that law, Section 49, even instructs the arrester, the police, to use the deadly force. These are the words. These are the words in the law. Deadly force, if the life of a citizen or the life of the arrester is in danger, use the deadly force. That's what is explained there. If you read, so we have never called the police. We have never called the police to be brutal and get outside the law, because police themselves, you find that they are under attack and then they have to defend themselves there. Quite about 5 police under lockdown have died brutally. They have died brutally. They were shot and killed. They were stabbed in Northern Cape. One young man was killed responding to the domestic violence here in Sentin. As he got in the house after it has been phoned by the wife, he was shot and killed there. So this response is relative, is proportional, how the police respond to that particular issue, to that particular situation in that time. But nobody, and we shall never call the brutality of the police, but at the same time, we shall not call the police to be sacrificial lambs. We shall not do that. So the relativeness of the measurement of the police, easier behaving citizens, don't use force, don't push them, but the law, not Cele, that says you need to increase a little bit of push if and when the arrest is made difficult. So I've seen what the judge says, and he's worried about statement, but there is nothing illegal about the statement that has been made. Because that judgment, I made the point on this one. I'm not prepared because those are the areas, legal areas that we are challenging. Otherwise, I'll be preempting the legal processes if I come to say that here and now. What is on level 3? I don't know. It will be announced on level 3, and ours as the police is just to implement level 3 as it comes. Criminal records of the people that would have been charged and found guilty. I'm sure you have heard that the Minister of Justice is looking at that to see how it can work, how the Justice Department can work around that together with the police. And I don't want, again, to preempt that process. We hope it's a process when it is done, we'll know as the police and the justice what to do about. Thanks.
Thank you, Minister. We do have another set of questions, but I'm going to take only a few. Minister, this one you've already dealt with. Rio from Heart FM is asking if the minister would speak to the issue of how many complaints have been received about the behavior of SAPS members during the lockdown, and how many of these investigations have been completed, with what outcomes. And then Kevin Pillay from KZN is asking when will CPFs be able to patrol their respective areas? And then the third question is from Zahid Jadwat from Salam Media. His question is, has the police department received complaints of intimidation and unprovoked harassment of traders? And then the fourth question, is the minister aware of alleged bribery and extortion by police officers? If so, what action is being taken? And then, Minister, there's a question that I think now I have about 5 of those. All of them are asking about the recruitment of new trainees for the South African Police Service. I'll let Minister answer those 5 questions. There are still others.
The last one, recruitment, yeah. And bribery and extortion. The National Commissioner will join me to working for his money. Well, fortunately, this question of the training we discussed yesterday with the police management and the ministry. When do we think we can begin to work on those? We were really disrupted. We were ready for 7,000 of the new intake. So we'll be looking at the levels going down. Remember, there is a talk of opening of schools, opening of universities, and all that. We will be working ourselves within that. The way that will not endanger those members as they're coming. But the academic year starts somewhere in March and ends somewhere in December. It has been disrupted, but we'll try to find a way of working. But it has been on discussion until yesterday when the police management and the ministry met to deal with those matters. Things we are fine that we are going forward on that matter. Commissioner, let's share the mic.
Thanks very much, Minister, for the opportunity. The question that I will take is the one of the CPF activities. What I will indicate is that we had an online community policing meeting during the week. And what is in place at the moment regarding community policing has been the introduction of online community policing. So the community policing activities, they are continuing now at online level. But as we are expecting to go down to level 3, we are going to be presenting an action plan, a community policing action plan, and it will define exactly how the community policing activities would be undertaken. With regard to bribery and extortion, our mechanisms of inspectorate are fully in place, and we are also working together with IPIT to put those mechanisms in place. But then the intelligence is also fully in place, monitoring. So all these mechanisms complement each other to look at bribery and extortion. Where we find the involvement of our members, we then apply the necessary investigation processes, including internal investigation. But as the question is raised, we are also then calling upon members of the public and any member to bring to our attention any bribery or extortion activity which they witness, and we will act upon those. I'm sure the recruitment and the other questions the minister has given sufficient.
Members of the public should not bribe themselves because there is a briber and a bribe.
And the minister has just put it right. Please, members of the public, do not bribe our members, because if we also find cases of bribery, we are going to provide a response to both. While we're acting against our members, we are also going to pick up those who are bribing them. Thank you.
Thank you, General. I'm not sure if Minister wants to also share with the Deputy Minister, but there are still a few questions from the media that have come through GCIS on WhatsApp. Takalani?
Thanks. We have a follow-up question from Alex from News 24, who said, could you please give us a breakdown of how many people have been arrested since level 4 was introduced for cigarette offences, alcohol offences, illegal gatherings, and failure to stay at home. And we have also Miriam Isa from Finwick. The question is, can you explain why people are only allowed to exercise outdoors for 3 hours a day, but permitting them to walk around shopping malls all day, where risk of infections is much higher? Thanks.
Okay, can I also just throw in these two from Rorisa Nkhosana from The Citizen? The first question is there really a need to arrest people for the possession of alcohol in their vehicles rather than just confiscation? Since there are many officers testing positive and police stations are temporarily shutting down due to that, wouldn't arresting people for such contraventions in turn put their lives at risk? And then the second question is, a police spokesperson in KZN was quoted as saying smoking cigarettes in your own home was a crime. People have complained of officers confiscating their personal cigarettes during stop and searches. The regulations state that the sale of tobacco products was prohibited. Does that mean possession of personal cigarettes is a crime? Those are the questions. Minister will indicate who will respond. Can I just, before the minister responds, are there any other questions?
There's no any other questions on the...
We don't have any questions from the telephone lines either.
Thank you. After these ones, Minister, we will be done. Thank you very much.
This question of breaking down has been coming. We said at one point towards the end of April, when we're still on level 5, we had about 107,000 cases opened with 118,000 people charged for contravention of the lockdown regulations. In just over a month, this number has more than doubled and is almost 230 for contravention that include liquor-related offences, cigarette-related offences, illegal gathering, which have gone down when compared with the legal 5, failure to confine to place of residence, cross-border and interprovincial movement, business offences, transport-related offences, like the taxes though the taxes has improved on it, fraudulent and or permits of these taxes. We don't have figure per each, but these are offenses that people have been arrested for, and this is a number that has been given. Let me start with an easy one. Why do people arrested when they found with alcohol in their cars? No. There are two questions. There is alcohol and cigarette. Alcohol is very clear. You go and read your regulations. Regulations simply say there shall be no transportation of alcohol. That's what the regulation is. Whether it's in your basket, whether it's in your pocket, so long you create some form of transport, you shall not be allowed to transport. So even if you are staying in C section, you want to go and drink in B section, so you would have transported. Says you'll drink it in your own house. Somebody said in your own father's house. So you'll drink it in your own house. Transporting is not allowed. That's your alcohol. As alcohol is allowed that you drink it in your house, cigarettes will be smoked in your house. It's not illegal to smoke the cigarette in your house when it has been there. The only problem is when we found it in a car and you failed to show us where did you get the cigarette. You failed, and when did you get the cigarette? So if you say you have bought the cigarette, here is a receipt, we've got two options there, is to get you and go and get the person who sold the cigarette to you. But if the cigarette was there in your 1,000 loses and you're smoking home, really, we're not going to come in your house to arrest you to drink your alcohol. We're not going to come home to arrest you for. But buying the cigarette is illegal. That's why they say, not just the sale, buying too is illegal. So those things should be separated until those regulations are removed, and it will remain offense to do that particular thing. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Minister, Deputy Minister, and National Commissioner. Members of the media, our listeners and viewers at home, and my colleagues here, as well as the technical guys from GCIS and other media houses. This brings us to the end of the media briefing today. We thank and appreciate you for your time. Thank you very much, Minister. The session is over.
Abalinde ukuthi beza njwala.